Hello and welcome to your weekly peel of the electric car banana, brought to you by the team at electrifying.com. This week we'll be chatting about electricity tariffs, the Alpine A290, and of course the shy and in no way controversial Elon Musk. We'll also answer some of your car buying questions and air your opinions on last week's episode. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Mike.
And I'm Tom.
Just the boys today then, Tom.
Just us.
It was the What Car Awards last night at time of recording, which is an event that single-handedly keeps the British drinks industry in business through dry January. Now, I'm not linking the fact that Ginny's not here and she went to the What Car Awards last night, but I would say that the two worst hangovers I've ever had have been the day after the What Car Awards. So I'm sure you've got fond memories of them as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it is a big one. For anyone who's never been, it's kind of, 1,000 people? Possibly more.
Probably more than that now, in that huge room in the Grosvenor Hotel.
Yeah, which is over an old ice rink. Did you know that? The ballroom in the Grosvenor Hotel? It used to be an ice rink. Yeah, and then lots of people get served some chicken and there's lots of awards, aren't there? But it's normally a good time to catch up, but I didn't go this year.
No, we didn't get the invite this year, but anyway, we're not bitter about it. Well, anyway, we've obviously not going to the What Car Awards. What else have you been up to, Tom?
Well, we were filming yesterday, so we went out and braved the wind and the rain and did the Kia EV3 versus the Skoda Elroq.
Interesting.
So I'm not quite sure when that's out, but it is an interesting comparison. So the EV3 is quite a controversial, futuristic looking car.
Yeah.
And the Elroq's quite normal, I would say. And I think we were fairly evenly split on which one we preferred in terms of the looks and everything else. Skoda's got a bit more space. EV3's got a few more gadgets. So it's an interesting one. So you'll have to wait for the video because I'm not quite sure they've made up their mind yet.
Okay. Didn't you have some people from Kia wanted to come have a sneaky look at the Elroq?
Well, yeah, because the Elroq was a left-hand drive car and they got it over here early to do all sorts of press activity with it and to show it off early. And the Kia people said, what are you doing with our EV3? And we said, we're doing it against the Skoda. Would you mind if we just popped along and had a poke around?
Sure, with a tape measure and everything,
letting down the tyres sneakily so it didn't handle quite so well when we were testing it. But it's an interesting one. I mean, I might veer more towards the Skoda, but that's because I'm a motoring introvert. I think we'll get on to later.
No, very interesting. Very well. And what else has caught your eye this week?
The Aura Funky Cat, which then became the Aura 03.
Yeah,
they've now done another rename, and they've called it they've gone GWM. I think they're going to drop the Aura, or they're still going to have the Aura in the 03 name, but they won't do for the future ones. It's all very confusing. But what they've also done, which is far more sensible, is lopped $6,000 off the price.
Wow. Okay.
Which is do you remember when it came out, everyone went, well, this car's all right. How much is it? $32,000. Everyone went,
crazy price, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was when the MG4 was around and was at 26, and it's like, how does that work? And of course, they instantly got discounted on the leases and were, dirt cheap while they were getting rid of them.
Many bargains, but Barnard's bargains were Aura 03s. Yeah.
So now they've just seen sense and made it $26,000 to start with. It's $25,000, isn't it? Oh, and they've introduced a GT version, which does look quite good, actually.
I saw that. Yeah, it does look.
And you look at it, you think, it's got red calipers and stuff. How much more power has it got? None. It's still 169 horsepower. So it's like, which is perfectly fast enough, but it's not gonna match the looks quite. And also, I think the problem is it's not that far off the Alpine, which I think you're going to talk about a bit, aren't you? Because you're the expert on that. You wrote that story.
Well, I wouldn't class myself as an expert, but the Renault 5 and the Alpine A290 are both open for orders this week, which is great news if you're a Renault 5 fan or you've been on that waiting list. It's 13 months since that was shown in final production form. That's a long time, isn't it, to wait just to put your order in? And I don't know when you're going to get your car, but it's been a very painful long wait. And the Alpine went on sale the same day and they announced prices for it as well. So the entry level one, the 180 horsepower one, is going to be 33,500, and the performance one with 220 horsepower is 36 grand. But Renault, I mean, a bit like they have done with 5, they've been very clever with the monthlies, almost to the point where you look at the sums, you think, how is that coming out that low? I'm going to use the word low relatively. With 345 a month for the 180 horsepower one and 365 a month for the performance one. So basically, 20 quid more for the top of the range one. And that compares really well, I think, with some of the other cars in the category. You get an MGX Power is 36.5, but it's 417 on a monthly, which is kind of a chunk more than the Alpine is. Which would you choose, Tom? I mean,
Well, I haven't driven the Alpine, but the MG, I think when we both drove one not so long ago, we didn't quite get on with it, did we? It was
no, I didn't want to drive it home.
No, well, it's got a very strange vibration, which I thought might be that car being broken, but having gone onto some forums and stuff, it just seems to be a trait of that car. It was sort of 67 miles an hour to 71. It just got a really strange vibration, and was there a noise as well? But it was just odd, and I didn't like it. And it's something to do with the drive shafts, I think, and they can't fix it.
I mean, that car felt the whole thing felt like an NVH engineer's worst nightmare. It would, I think, we're going to get onto it later. We've got a question about Chinese brands, and it just felt unfinished. You and I have been lucky enough to go and drive a lot of prototypes and sort of final versions before series production, and they've always had some sort of squeak, rattle, vibration, whistling noise, and 99 times out of 100 they've all been improved when when the final production versions come out. But that car just feels a little unfinished, I think. So out of those two, I like you, I've not driven the Alpine, but it looks fantastic, and I'm sure it'll drive really well, because the 5 seems to have driven really well. So I think out of those two, I probably would choose the Alpine. So and you've been crunching some numbers as well this week on your favourite subject, electricity tariffs.
Well, I thought it was about time that I looked at. I do an article every few months when there's been some changes in the tariffs, just to see what the differences are and who's got the best and the cheapest EV tariff for electricity. And it's always interesting to have a look at and how much you can save. So the interesting bit this time is Octopus have always been number one. And now the best Octopus can do is, I'm just having a look at my chart here, 5th out of 10. And Octopus Go, the non-intelligent one, is 7th. So top now is OVO's Charge Anytime. And then Eon's Next Drive. Now, the Eon Next Drive is interesting because it's not a smart tariff. You don't have to have a car which is linked to the intelligent tariffs. You don't have to have an intelligent thing. So you and I could have it because we don't have those cars. And it's really interesting. So, I mean, like the Eon Next Drive one is £1,020 a year versus the best Octopus. Well, Octopus Go is 1,140. So you're talking, nearly 100 quid a year.
And that figure's based on lots of, you sort of factor in loads of charging for that. That's is your kind of, you use the standard amount of charging kilowatts.
Yeah. So what I've said is a Volkswagen ID3 owner who's doing 8,000 miles per year and doing all their charging at night, basically, just to make it kind of thing. Okay. Octopus, I've had some discussions with them, and they say that people who have smart tariffs use a lot of their other household electricity at night as well. So they say 40% of the usage at night. So I did the sums with that as well, which I didn't put in the article, but it's still Eon's then the cheapest. And Octopus Intelligent is 4th then. But it's a big deal. The difference between one of those tariffs and a non-smart tariff at the current off-gem rate is sort of 1,381 quid versus 800 quid. So it's you're talking a lot of money there. It's 500 quid a year to move on to one of those. It makes a real difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does make a huge difference.
So I've had enough of spreadsheets this month.
You've had enough of spreadsheets. Well, another thing we've probably had enough of is is Elon Musk, isn't it, really? And we
Oh
can't do another
God,
podcast.
yeah.
I know, we're fed up with talking about him. But last time, on the last podcast, we said that we'd started a survey on electrifying.com to ask if people were put off at all by the antics and behaviour of Mr. Musk. We had a good response. We had 783 responses up until 5 minutes before I started this call, and the results are in, and it's 59% of current electric car owners and non-electric car owners say that yes, they are put off buying a Tesla because of Elon Musk. So that's a lot, isn't it? And almost
That is a lot.
60% of your potential market are thinking no. And this morning, our video of the Tesla Model Y, the Juniper, the facelifted Model Y, which Vicky's done, is live on YouTube. And the comments on that, Tom, off the scale, aren't they?
Salty, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know people who have said to me, I wouldn't buy a Tesla. We've had comments on the podcast, haven't we, saying, I don't want to buy a Tesla. What else can you recommend? It's fascinating for me. I don't know what his end game is. Is he trying to get thrown out because he doesn't want to do electric cars anymore because we know the new administration in America isn't so keen on them, or does he just like being talked about?
I think it might be as basic as that. I mean, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people with their own guesses as to why he's behaving the way he is. I don't know. I mean, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion, isn't it? And every time we think we've hit kind of peak Elon, something else comes along, like the inauguration last week, and the comments since doubling down on stuff as well. It's astonishing. And plenty of people say, quite rightly, the car's nothing to do with the owner. Do you know how the chairman and CEOs of other car companies are behaving? No, we don't, because generally speaking, they don't own social media companies and aren't as prominent. So it's difficult. I mean, there's a lot of people said, why are you giving Tesla airspace with the reviews? And I think we should continue to review the cars because they are what they are. But yeah, it's a very complicated situation, and not one that's going to be resolved soon, I wouldn't have thought.
No, it is a strange thing. I mean, if you go to the supermarket and there's one product, I know, a washing powder or something, and you've heard bad things about the owner of that company, and there's another one next to it which is the same price and will do the same job, then you're going to go for the one that's not as controversial, are you? And it is in the electric car arena now. You've got a choice of cars, so maybe you will not choose that one. But a lot of people, I don't know, will support his views or they won't care. And fair enough, I suppose.
Okay.
It's just gives us something to chat about, I suppose.
It does. I'm a bit tired of it now. Welcome to the world of electric, Tom. It's been quiet the last couple of weeks, but this week, I think maybe the new year, people are buying new cars. It's been a bumper post bag. As we always say, if you're new to the world of electric, please let us know at podcast@electrifying.com. We love to hear stories that you're happy you bought electric and you're happy with it. I'll start with Andy Bell. He says, I've been watching your podcast ever since we began considering a new car to replace our 10-year-old petrol Dacia Sandero. For months, I swithered. I love that word. Is that really a word?
Should I?
If it isn't, you've invented a new one, Andy. Between a new Dacia Duster petrol, an MG HS PHEV, and an MG ZS EV for our family of 4. After watching your podcast where you mentioned Scotland's interest-free loans for used EVs, we made our decision to apply for one. In the end, we chose a 9-month-old Renault Megane E-Tech Iconic with about 6,500 miles, which we bought because we like the indicator sounds. So someone will cut from the same cloth as Nicola. We both absolutely love it. It's night and day compared to our old Dacia, but also against anything else I've driven in the past. Our 2 boys love all the gadgets and screens. So well done, Andy. That's a good choice, and taking advantage of that lovely kind of low interest loans you have up in Scotland. So yeah, well done. Hope you enjoy it.
Slightly further afield is David Watson, who says, I listened to your podcast from Georgia in the US and I'm loving my new electric car I purchased last week. I took a 4-hour, 225-mile drive to pick up my 2019 Chevy Bolt EV. It has 74,000 miles but looks brand new. My last car was a petrol Kia Soul with 196,000 miles when I bought it. Mind you, have to do 196,000 miles to go to a supermarket in America, don't you? So it's I've never heard of Chevy Bolt mentioned on the show. Have any of you driven it? What did you think? I have a big smile on my face when I drove home and still giddy when I see it. Did I get a Barnard bargain on this car? As it was $9,000 after the tax credit. I know it's not available in the UK, but neither is the Skoda Enyaq available here. I haven't driven a Bolt. No. I don't think any of us have. I mean, there was the Volt. Do you remember that? Which was that really quite clever range extender, wasn't it? It was also a Vauxhall Ampera, wasn't it?
Ampera,
yeah, which was a clever thing. But no, I think the Bolt's quite popular in the States, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe we should try and get a going one. So $9,000. What's that? Probably about $7
grand, something like that.
Yeah. So that is cheap. Yeah, not bad. So yes, that officially qualifies for a Barnard bargain. It gets the stamp.
We need to start giving stamps or something, or a little sell patch that you can send out to people.
Window sticker. Yeah.
Yes, I've got a bargain. Barnard's bargain. Yeah, I love it. We should definitely do that. And finally, with three this week, Gareth Edwards says, "I'm very happy to say we've joined the EV Owners Club. Got a long range MG ZS 2022 plate with 13,000 miles for 17 grand. He also asks, would that go down as a bargain, Barnard's bargain?
I would say that's about a Barnard's about right.
This is another window sticker. Excellent. I think it's a good price. It's a good, I think that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Speaking of which, should we move on to the real Barnard's bargains?
So I got some lease deals this week. I did do some last night in preparation for this, and then checked them this morning, and 3 of them had sold out. They'd gone.
You've got to be quick.
Which were all BMWs actually. Yeah, there was a Mini Countryman electric, and there was a BMW iX2, both of which had gone, and I can't remember what the other one was, but they'd gone. So they're obviously very. Oh, it's a Volkswagen ID4 for just over 300 quid a month. Which I thought was pretty good, the ones I found this week interesting. Jaguar I-Pace R Dynamic SE Black. I mean, that's
where's that been? It's been in the field for 3 months.
£534 a month, which seems pretty good for a car of that price. Or if you want something a bit more bargainous, Vauxhall Mocha, a serial car. But it was an interesting comparison here. A Mocha Electric GS, £216 a month.
Yeah.
If you wanted a petrol one, so it's a 1.2 petrol, exactly the same spec, it's 471 quid. So 250 odd quid less a month. Yes. Well, it's nuts, isn't it? I mean, that's the old pre-facelift cars, and the electric one has the older 48 kilowatt hour battery and the 136 horsepower engine, but still 216 quid a month. That's cheap.
Yeah, I'd like to meet the person who's signing up for £471 a month for a petrol Mocha, though. I mean, you've got to be fully committed.
You've got to like that shade of green, haven't you?
You've got to love a Vauxhall for that. Right, okay. Comments and questions we've had from podcast@electrifying.com. We generally love to hear from you. We have a fantastic postbag every week, and there's been a really good one this week. You can moan at us. We don't mind. We take the moans and the compliments. Probably get more moans than compliments, so that's fine. I'll start with Wayne. Start with Wayne. Yeah, Wayne's going to moan, isn't he?
Yeah. Says, hey guys, I'm wondering why you never seem to recommend Chinese cars during car buyers' questions. The MG ZS and MG5 are fantastic value used bargains. MG4 too. I've had mine 2 years now. It's been faultless. Not perfect, but it's never let me down. I had a couple of hours of BYD Atto 3 and love that too. The risk of sounding like a Chinese car fanboy, I'll probably never buy a legacy manufactured EV.
Okay.
No, I think we do mention Chinese electric cars a lot. What I would say from a Barnard's Bargains point of view is that the MG ranges aren't that cheap. Because I think Ginny and I mentioned this on a video recently about the used stuff. So that they took £10,000 off the new car price of 5s and ZSs. And it didn't seem to have any effect on the used car prices at all. So they were still, a MG5 with 10,000 miles was 20 grand, and you could buy a new one for 20 grand. And I didn't quite understand it. So that's the reason. Is they don't seem that. I mean, the MG5, I think, and the ZS feel a little dated now compared to some other things when you're looking at them new or nearly new.
Yeah.
And if you have when people like Honda are throwing the discounts at ENY ones, and you've got the choice of that or a ZS, I think I'll probably have the Honda if it's cheaper. So that's why we don't mention them as much. But I've got nothing against, especially the MG4. I think it's, except the X Power, of course. I think it's a great car.
Yeah, and I think there's a degree of some of them are slightly lacking in desirability. Can I put it that way? For me, anyway. So if you look at some of the bigger, the BYD Seal, that kind of thing, the C line, and the Amoda and that kind of thing, that sort of big, slightly generic kind of styled sort of SUVs and saloons, they tend, for me, they don't really have enough personality to stick in my mind, which is why I kind of, they don't become the default thing when we're coming to recommend things. But mechanically, they're very competent. They generally go a long way on they do everything you'd want to do. And if you the sort of person who buys a car, perhaps on a spreadsheet basis, that that does this and does that and does everything, it's got the right equipment, tons and tons of equipment, Chinese cars, then they're great. For me personally, from what we do for a living, in terms of we review stuff, we'd say what we like, and as much as giving the facts, I think that sometimes can be a little bit kind of lacking in personality. And I think that's certainly a criticism people threw at Japanese cars way back in the sort of 70s and 80s, and then they were clones of European cars and then got their own personality, really. So maybe the same thing will happen with Chinese brands. I mean, they're using a lot of designers and engineers from European brands now.
And there's Chinese brands, and there's cars that are built in China, which is
yes, the two things
an
are
awful lot of them. Polestars and Volvos, and all built in China. So and we recommend those a lot too.
Yeah. So Wayne, we do and we don't. So okay, that's Stuart Neal is the next question. Now, Stuart says, I've been watching the podcast for some time and I really enjoy it. But one thing you don't seem to mention is the cost of insurance for an electric car. I drive an Ioniq 5 and I was looking to change it for a new one. Same spec, same model. However, my insurance broker wanted 72 hours to talk to the insurance company, and LV wouldn't even insure me at all because I'm 76 and they said they don't insure drivers over 75 for electric cars. The government wants us to go electric, but the insurance industry is putting obstacles in our way, he says. I think I'll go and buy a top-of-the-range Porsche and blow the consequences. Well, Stuart, possibly you may have stuck with LV a little bit too long, or you haven't really shopped around enough, I would say. My dad's 78 and he's on his third electric car now. I don't think he's ever struggled to get insurance for it. He's insured with Admiral at the moment, because I checked with him yesterday. So there are plenty. It's going to cost you more. I think from the age of sort of 60, 65, the cost goes up because statistically you are more of a risk. But it's perfectly possible to get cover, certainly on electric cars. If you're listening to this and you are in the same age category, perhaps as Stuart, and you get good cover from somebody, please let us know in the comments, because it would be helpful for other people who are in the same situation. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think if you just go into one of the comparison sites and tap it in your details, then it'll normally find the best one for you. There are certain times when you should talk to a broker, a proper live broker, and they might be able to help out with some details. But I had an interesting one with my son passed his driving test, and to insure it the next day, so in 24 hours time, was going to save us 300 quid. So just waiting 24 hours. I mean, he was keen to go out and drive because he could, but just waiting. So those sorts of, I wouldn't have known unless I'd spoken to a broker. It was nuts. If I'd have waited a week, it would have been another 100 quid off, but he couldn't wait that long. He said, I'll pay the extra 100 quid. I want to go and drive. So there were those crazy things. But of course, him being 17, there are certain insurance companies who wouldn't go near him with a barge pole, but there are other ones who would. And you just, by going onto one of those comparison sites, you find out the best deals.
That's what I would say.
Now, street charging, Mike.
A subject that comes up regularly.
Yeah. So Dean Coogan, who's a BYD Atto 3 owner, says, "Hi team, in a recent podcast you discussed charging and you don't have off-street parking. There's a company called ChargeArm that offers a solution to the problem. What does the team think?" Now, hopefully we can weave in the picture here so you can have a look. What do you think, Mike?
Well, let me describe it if you're not able to see it on screen at the moment. It's like a large sort of pole that goes at the end of your garden or drive or your path or whatever, and then an enormous kind of metal arm that goes. I almost did an Elon there. A large metal arm that goes across the pavement, holding the cable. And it means that people can walk underneath this kind of contraption to while you charge your car. I must admit, it looks like something. You know how jet washes are. You know, they've got that big arm that means you can wash the other side of the car without traipsing the cable over the roof.
Yep.
Looks a bit like that. It looks a bit like the sort of things you see from the 1920s when people used to hang a hay bale on it for a horse or something. It's it's not the most elegant solution, Tom.
It's not. You remember when, like, on comedy shows, when they used to have, if somebody wasn't doing very well, they used to have a hook that came from the side of the stage and then hook around them and pull them off. It looks like one of those, doesn't it, with a cable on the end? It doesn't look terribly elegant. Also, I think I can just imagine teenagers kind of dangling off it on their way home from the pub or something. I think that if you can get one built into the curb, like you can do now, can't you? And there's some government thing about being able to do that and councils helping you to do that. That's got to be a far more elegant solution for everybody.
I think if you walk down any urban street and you saw rows of those, you just think it's living in some sort of dystopian society, wouldn't you? It just doesn't look. It looks like a real backwards. I mean, good luck to them, charge on. If if they're finding people who want to buy it and it does work as a solution, but it's not really my bag. But anyway, but thank you for bringing it to our attention, Dean. That's it's certainly an interesting solution for sure. Gosh, we're rattling on. Time-wise, right, keeping the screens clear. Jeff Johnson writes, while driving down the A1 the other day, temperatures around -5 in my Skoda Kodiaq. I was getting desperate for my washer bottle to unfreeze, and in the nick of time, the waste heat from my 2-litre diesel did its best and I could clear my windscreen. As someone who is about to order a Renault 5, my mind turned to the question of how I would cope in an EV. Obviously, there's no waste heat from the engine to warm up the washer bottles. Do EVs perhaps have a small heater to do the job? I've always thought this will be a good idea in any car, electric or ICE. Surely having a clear view ahead is a prime safety requirement. Well, Jeff, quite a lot of cars do actually. I did Google this earlier and sort of found out even cars back as, there's Ford Focuses, there's classic, there's old Mercedes and everything. It seems a bit kind of slightly random as to which brands have adopted it. Volvos, as far as I can make out, every Volvo has heated washer nozzles and washer jets. I think that's probably a legacy of being a Scandinavian manufacturer, that it was part of that.
My old 1991 Range Rover had heated washer jets.
This is what I mean. It's a really odd. I mean, there was a Mark 1 Vectra had them, but the Mark 2s and 3s didn't. So it's a very odd mix. But a Megane E-Tech has them, Jeff. But I couldn't find out whether the Renault the 5 has. Probably hasn't, because it's another few euros you can strip out the cost of it for a cheaper car. But I mean, there is an easier solution. Is just to put neat washer
solution, literally or non-solution. Just put in some stuff. I've done some geeky testing on screen wash, and it's gone down to -18 if you use it neat. I put it in the freezer overnight in a syringe and then tried it, and so that's the easiest way to do it, isn't it?
That's proper stuff. Do you remember when? I don't know if they still do it. I'm not driven an Audi press car lately, but certainly in the 2000s, Audi had some stuff that they used to put into the washer bottles. It would strip your eyes, wouldn't it? It would strip the skin off your face. It was just like unbelievably potent stuff you could smell in the car.
Talking of which, I was driving the Kia EV3 back last night, and of course the weather's filthy, so I'm using the screen wash a lot. And it comes up with a message on the screen saying, "Oh, we've put air recirculation on your ventilation, so you don't have to smell the screen wash." I'm like, what? But it does it every time. So on a journey like that, where I'm washing the windows like 10 times, it's like, oh. Am I taking this turning? I don't know. There's a message about the screen wash on there. It's like, I've understood now. You only need to tell me once. Thanks very much.
That display takes over a big chunk of the screen, doesn't it? My Ioniq 5, when I had that, we used to do the same. If you went through a tunnel it used to ping up on the screen to tell you that we know you're in a tunnel, we're going to switch on air recirculation. But it would often be just the case, I would need to know what lane I'm in to know, and it would hang around on the screen for 5 or 10 seconds, which feels a lifetime when you're just trying to wait to see where your direction is. So I mean, it's I appreciate what it's doing. Like you said, they do it the first time and then perhaps just leave it after that, so you don't need to constantly keep reminding us of that.
What's next, Mike? What's next?
Well, we're going to do some car buying advice.
Car buying? Oh, yeah, we
let's
are.
do some car buying
So
advice.
Jeff Davis says, I'm looking to choose my first and last EV.
Oh, it sounds
ominous, didn't it? I need your help. I don't need an executive saloon, urban runaround, dragster, or Chelsea tractor. I do not need infotaining.
Excellent.
I just need a car that will reliably take me 180 miles a week on Britain's rural roads. I've tried a Dolphin, an ID3 and an MG4, all way too big. I've also tried an Insta, a Funky Cat and a Renault 5, which at least fit. Ideally, my shortlist would be VW ID2, Hyundai Ioniq 2, Fiat Panda Grande, Skoda Epic, Renault 5. Trouble is, I can't drive any of these away today, so I'm hoping my aging internal combustion engine car survives for another month. In the meanwhile, I'd love to hear your ideas. Well, I've got one. Just go and buy a Vauxhall Corsa because mine's gone back. I had one as a courtesy car.
Yeah, you're converted now, aren't you? Yeah,
it's great. Yeah, so it was really good. It did everything really well. And the thing is that buy a nearly new one and they're 17 grand. I think it's unbeatable, really. I really liked it. I can understand it's not as funky looking as a Renault 5, but
and that's
does everything well.
And that's going to be cheaper than an Insta, isn't it? Which is slightly more money than we thought it was going to be originally. So
yeah. And that's the thing with the Renault 5 is everybody wants one, so they're going to be expensive. There's going to be no deals on them. And the Renault 5 is what, 24 grand?
Yeah,
which is good value for that. But against £17,000 for a Corsa, I think I'd keep the cash and have the Corsa.
There you go, as a recommendation. Yeah, I mean, it strikes to me that Jeff, you're not particularly sort of brand loyal. There's nothing you just want. You just literally size and budget and simplicity is your thing. So
no nonsense. Yeah. Or go and find a used Volkswagen Up electric or
Up City Go or say it me.
Yeah.
They're still fetching quite good money though. They're still quite hanging on. So they're really good cars though. That's
or Dacia Spring. That's pretty no nonsense.
That's proper no nonsense. I think that's too no nonsense for Jeff.
Nonsense. Yeah,
I think so. How many miles have you got to do? What's 180 miles a week? I mean, it's not too hard. You don't say whether you've got charging at home or not, but that could work. It certainly is quite basic, isn't it?
What's in your postbag, Mike?
Oh, another bumper postbag. These are comments from last week's podcast, which I didn't make, but I gather you all had fun doing it. So the subject of introverts and extroverts keeps coming back. I think it'll be the last week we cover this. As we've discussed, Tom, you're an introvert, car introvert. I'm apparently a car extrovert, which I don't, just because I've got a bright yellow Volkswagen ID Buzz on my drive. But
how is it? Is it all right, Mike?
Well, I'll tell you the two cars I've driven this week, Tom. I've driven a Volkswagen Tiguan and a Volkswagen T-Roc, which tells you one thing. It's been back to the dealers. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, the door hinge, the side door, I don't realise why it's cheap now. The side door on the passenger side doesn't lock in place. And my drive's on a slight incline. So it just acts like a guillotine. You open it up. You get something out, and then if your arm's not out of the way, that's it. It's going to be gone. So they initially tried to say it's something that might be a software update, but it's clearly the hinge that's not working. So they changed the hinge and everything like that, but it took 2 days longer than they thought. So I had to have a succession of courtesy cars, which were unpleasant and with no fuel. Does anyone ever get a courtesy car that has petrol in it? So you always get one, and it's always like, the light's on and it says there's about 6 miles of range, and it's always me that fills them up or at least puts in enough to get me somewhere, but obviously people don't. Sorry, we digress. Subject of introverts and extroverts. Phil Galpin says, for the extrovert on a budget, it's always good, I recommend the Smart 4.2 electric. People love to talk about it. Yeah, good choice.
Do you remember that day when we went to go and drive some Smarts, Mike?
Yeah, that was a bit of an eye opener in terms of real world range on that car, wasn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of drove off and then drove back again, and then was like pulled over and thought, I'm not going to make it back. I'm going to have to find a charger. And it's only been like 30 miles. Oh God.
We found one in a motorway services, didn't we? In the end, at a KFC.
Because it was. Could it not do DC charging or something? So I had to connect it to the 22 kilowatt and sit there for an hour and eat some
it was
food.
also back in the days of ecotricity as well, wasn't it? So we'd managed to find, I think the only thing that worked at the services that we'd stopped at was a 7 kilowatt slow charger. But it's only... It was more of a surprise how much range that car didn't have. But Catherine 9036 says, I must be a car extrovert as I've got an electric Kia Soul, got a low mileage first edition, still has 4 years warranty left on it. It's lovely to drive as well. Yep, Kia Soul is quite a striking looking car. And Kez2164 says, car introvert versus extrovert. I'm definitely a car introvert, but I love my Kia Niro. It's our only family car and takes us from Newcastle to Norfolk, London and Kent with ease. And Simon Evans says, I'm a car introvert. I want a car that looks like a car and not an ice cream float. And I'll give you one more. Brian Griffiths says, I suppose being a pensioner who drives a rose gold Fiat 500e. Good choice, Brian. One of Tom's cars he hates. Immediately preceded by a Renault Twingo GT in white with orange decals suggests I'm a car extrovert. Yes, definitely, Brian. And you've got good taste in Fiats.
Okay. Well, we've also had some questions about the Renault 5 getting European Car of the Year after last week when Vicky was talking about it, because Vicky is a Car of the Year juror. And it says, how did it get European Car of the Year after only getting a 4-star rating in COTI? This is from Philip Rees. 5-star ratings are awarded if a car reaches 80% protection in 4 categories. The Renault 5 barely passes adult and safety, failed pedestrian safety feature and safety assist. Aid McGuinness says Renault 5 European Car of the Year, but only 4-star NCAP safety rating. Really? And Mighty Wallaby too. How can the Renault 5 win with only a 4-star rating? So I asked Vicky about this, had a long conversation. She said, well, there's 2 things. First of all, the NCAP ratings hadn't come out when they were voting for it, so they didn't take that into consideration. Okay. They do take into consideration the Elk test. Do you remember the Elk test?
Yeah,
kind of,
it's like a Scandinavian
almost
magazine.
Killed the Mercedes A-Class. Yeah. So on the skidding about it, but we also had a long conversation about NCAP and the way it's going. So on these kind of smaller, cheaper cars, the manufacturer has to make a decision on what it's going to leave out, because some of it's very expensive, like the automatic braking systems, etc., etc. So the NCAP rules say it has to have it across the range, and if they leave it off on the entry-level version, then you get 4-star NCAP. And I think there will be some decisions to be made about things. I think that the Renault Zoe, for example, they took off an airbag, and NCAP quite rightly took away all their stars, and I accept that. If it's taking away lane keep assist, I think you have to make a decision about whether that is something which is really essential for you to want in your car. I think NCAP has done some great things. I think they themselves would acknowledge that some of the electronic safety driver assistance systems we've got now are perhaps a bit over the top, and especially on smaller cars. I don't know. Perhaps I'm being too easy on them, but
no, I think for the so I read the report for the Alpine, and it said that it doesn't have the driver awareness, the camera that looks at the driver and sort of pings and bongs when you even turn right or left to look out of a junction. It considers you not paying attention. So, and that was one of the that's just text checkbox, isn't it? That's not how it performs if you drive it into a wall or any of this stuff. This is literally, if you don't have XYZ on it, that's points off your score. Well, and there's no taking into account how well these systems actually operate, and if they're so annoying that everybody turns them off. The lane keep assist on the Buzz is fine. Occasionally I turn it off if I'm on a particular road but it's so much better than the Ioniq used to be, and they used to just wrench the steering wheel out of your hand. This is fine. This it's quite, and to override it doesn't need too much effort. So yeah, I mean, properly applied, a lot of these systems work fine, don't they? But if they're so annoying that you turn them off all the time, yeah, it's. But I know what Vicky's saying, as much as I think we've got to get to a point where it's a proper sliding scale, isn't it? So you can make a decision. It's if everything's getting 5 stars, then clearly the test is too easy or easy enough to game from the manufacturers. So if there is a genuine kind of, 3, 4, 5 stars, but that fundamentally they're safe, which they need to get that message across in the event of an accident. It's all these other kind of systems sort of muddying the waters.
I think it's an interesting comparison. I remember in the olden days when like ABS was coming in and ESP, for example, and all the manufacturers said, we can't do that on budget cars. And of course they could. And now it's on everything. And that's a great thing. And it's saved lives.
Yeah.
Now, are they doing the same here? Or we let them off too easy? I don't know. I'm not sure that all these driver assistance systems are quite as essential as they make out. Anyway, we're massively over again, aren't we? We get told off.
We get told off. Yeah, there's quite a few people saying we should run it to an hour and everything, but there's one good reason why we can't use the kilowatt hours. That's because someone else has registered it as a podcast. So if you're wondering why we don't call it, they don't use it. It's fine. But the kilowatt half hour was always invented as something that was going to be in about the same amount of time as it would take to charge up your car. We've sort of lost that kind of thing at the moment. But that was the original.
It depends on the car.
It does depend on the car, exactly. If you've got a Taycan, then you've already checked out. So there we go. So thank you very much for listening for another 40 minutes. That's not too bad. We've often waffled on for more than that, so we kept it quite tight. If you have been listening, thank you very much. Any of the videos that we've mentioned will be on our YouTube channel, so please like and subscribe. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, please leave us a review and a rating, even if it's not entirely favourable, because it helps with the algorithm and helps us get the podcast out to more people. So if you have been listening, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.